A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
There is an ongoing struggle between big government and faith-based schools and places of education. So this Friday, there's a very important meeting in Western Sydney involving faith leaders from not just Christian churches, but also from the Islamic faith, the Jewish faith, and even the Hindu faith, with the Federal Minister for Education, Jason Clare. And we're joined today by the president of the Alphacrucis University College. His name is Stephen Fogarty. And Stephen, I want to welcome you to 2020 today.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Wonderful to be with you and to talk about faith-based education.
It is a big topic, isn't it, Stephen? As government tends to get bigger in Australia, they seem to be trying to encroach upon us in the space of education. So tell us about the challenges you feel Christian education institutions and schools are facing right now.
I think in general there are two broad challenges. One is our ability to defend our integrity, i.e. to maintain our faith commitments, our ability to teach what we believe our faith requires us to do, and our ability to hire people who resonate with our faith, who believe and endorse and indeed actively participate in our faith. And that's absolutely critical for the integrity of every one of our institutions, from primary schools to secondary schools to tertiary institutions. And the second thing is that we need government at all levels to recognise the really vital role this vast education system across the country. If you took faith-based institutions out of primary, secondary and indeed even tertiary education, you'd leave a big hole there. The system would struggle. And so on the basis of that, we desire to have equity of funding. The same funding formulas that work for the public system should also apply in the faith-based system.
Yeah, so you're educating kids, but really you see your role now, you have to educate those in government that would try and devalue or underestimate the value of faith-based education.
Yeah, I think so. And that's not to make an accusation. I think, the public system is so big, particularly at the tertiary level. It's so big, it dominates the space so much that it's hard to see that there's another sector going on there. But there is a faith-based sector at the tertiary level, and when you get down to the primary and secondary level, it's not hard to see. It's the fastest growing enrolment base in primary and secondary education. So it's growing. Why is it growing? Because there are people of faith right across the country who want a value-based, indeed who want a faith-based education for their kids. We're seeing that very much so at the school level, and it's starting to emerge at the tertiary level now, and there are several providers around the country who are seeking to really become Christian faith-based universities. We'd be one of those. And I think over the next few years, you'll see the same thing with the Islamic community and with the Hindu community.
So this really comes down to a question of freedom and religious freedom at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Religious freedom, absolutely. And recognition that that education delivered within the framework of a religious worldview, a faith-based worldview, is just as valid, just as important as something delivered in a more secular framework. In fact, I would argue that faith-based education actually produces better citizens. There have been a few studies in different parts of the world, the United States, here in Australia, which suggest that graduates of faith-based institutions are much more likely to be involved in charitable work, to have a much greater sense of civic responsibility, to do all sorts of volunteer tasks. So I think it's incredibly important. Probably the other thing I would say, Andrew, is that when you think about education, the same as when you think about welfare or you think about our healthcare system, we actually wouldn't have them. In Western society, we wouldn't have them, except that people of faith saw the need and went out there and did something. And what have become massive taxpayer-funded, government-administered programs, and no one's arguing whether that's a good thing. It is a good thing, but really the inception of all of these critical structures within our society can be traced back to people of faith, to faith-based individuals and churches. So all the way along, faith-based education has been integral to what we have today, and we just want to say it continues to be integral, it continues to be vital, and it just needs to have the same recognition and the same degree of support as the public system.
Yeah, because costs of everything are going up in our society, aren't they? So I'm sure the cost of education is also going up from a provider's point of view, that is, from schools and universities' perspective. But going back to the outcomes, I believe you. I can see it, that the outcomes of faith-based schools will be way higher as far as making better citizens and people more involved in a civic sense of responsibility. But do you think that's because the teachers in faith-based schools also teach out of their faith and therefore have more passion and more of a desire to see an outcome amongst the students as well?
Yeah, I've got no doubt about that, Andrew. We're involved in teacher education, and we run it in conjunction with Christian schools and groups of schools around the country, where it's delivered in the school. Like from day one, the trainee teacher is in a school setting with classroom exposure, with a mentor, and indeed with a paid role within the school. And what we're noticing when education is done that way, that the selectivity is more precise. In other words, the people who put their hand up to go into those training positions have got a passion. In fact, they would say they've got a calling, a sense of a calling and enabling and accompanying passion that they would put down to their faith in Jesus Christ. So that's critical. And we all know that every one of us can tell a story about a teacher who had a passion for something, and that passion was probably more important than the precise content they were teaching us at the time. Interestingly enough, Andrew, I'm a product really of the Catholic system in Western Australia. Many years ago, the Christian Brothers system went all the way through from grade 1 all to grade 12. And of course, that whole system was started by a man called Edmund Rice in Ireland 200 or 300 years ago. And he had a personal tragedy where his wife died and he had a handicapped daughter. And so he gave up a prosperous business career because he decided in the midst of personal tragedy that he felt that God was wanting him to bring education to those who didn't have it. So it started a Catholic education system that really has become very significant and very influential right throughout the Western world. And for me, that typifies a faith-based approach to education. People actually want to make a difference. They feel called, they feel equipped, they feel passionate about helping other people grow in faith, grow in competence, grow as human beings, to flourish indeed, and to be responsible, effective, fruitful members of society. So, yeah, absolutely. The quality of the teachers is the most important factor in any form of education.
And it just seems, across all spectres in society, when people are doing things out of their hearts and out of their passion, they always do it better, don't they? I mean, you've only got to look at history, battles between mercenary armies and people defending their homeland and their families and where they were born. They always fight harder. They always fight better because there's passion. They're not just doing it for money or for some sort of employment opportunity. But so let's fast forward, though. So this Friday in Sydney, in Western Sydney, there's a summit about faith and education, and it will be attended by the Federal Minister for Education, Jason Clare. Who initiated the summit? Was it the faith-based institutions or was it the government?
Really the faith-based institutions, but there's been a conversation with Minister Clare for several months now, so he's been very interested in it, actually. In fact, we welcome his interest and delighted that he's chosen to come and be a part of the summit and to address it. So a little bit of both, but the truth is it's the faith-based communities just wanting to make sure that people understand that we're here, that we make a vital contribution, that we're a part of the answer, we're part of the solutions to have a coherent and a peaceful society, and we're absolutely critical to education in the country. So, yeah, it was our initiative.
And you've got other faith groups being represented as well, also speaking to the minister. Who else is going to be speaking besides Christian faith leaders? Yeah,
we'll have, on the speaking roster, we'll have one Islamic leader, we'll have one Hindu leader, and we'll have someone from the Jewish education system. So we'll have really the significant faith groupings all addressing the meeting. And we don't want to say that only the Christian faith contributes to a better society, that these other communities do as well, and they represent constituencies who really are looking for a form of education that doesn't marginalise their faith, but connects their faith to whatever professional outcomes education is providing for their children or themselves.
And do you find that those different faith groups and the Christian faith leaders do have some common ground that you can stand on, i.e. religious freedom and being left alone to hire the type of staff that you want, et cetera, et cetera? Have you all found a commonality that you can stand on?
Yeah, look, there's two common platforms. The first one is, as you've described it, religious freedom, the ability to maintain the integrity of our faith in the services that we're providing. So, yeah, absolutely number one, and we all have a hand up for that. And then the second one is just simply the notion of equity, that when we participate in the provision of education, that we have the same financial advantages and we're not faced with any disadvantages compared to the public system. So religious freedom and funding equity.
Yeah, excellent. And, Stephen, I'm sure you have a dream, just like Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream many years ago. What would your dream scenario be as a result of this summit on Friday? What would you like to see happen?
Well, number one, I'd like to enhance the communication, the harmony that we have going across various religious communities in Western Sydney. It's incredibly important. We know we live in a divisive age and an age where people tend to pull apart and identify themselves against the other. And so it's really important that we have these conversations, find ways to cooperate with each other, recognise the value that each one of us brings to society. So number one, just an enhancement of the value of faith and faith education right across our society, number one. Number two, moves in the direction of making it possible for us to have some substantial, in my case, Christian faith-based, but faith-based institutions. I'm looking forward to the day when we have really a significant Christian university in our nation that has the same degree of recognition as the big public universities, is attractive to students, has this wider range of academic offerings, and is able to maintain its integrity and its commitment to Christian faith.
It's independence from government intrusion. I love that vision because, obviously in the States, I'm just thinking of the States when you say that, there's so many great Christian universities over there, isn't there? Have you gone over there and done some field trips and tried to learn from the American model?
Yeah, many times. Numerous times. In fact, I'll be addressing a meeting in Washington in January of the Christian Council, the Coalition of Christian Colleges and Universities, so sort of a peak body for evangelical faith-based institutions. I'm a product of, I did a PhD at Regent University. So I know the American education system quite well. In fact, last week I was sitting down with the president of Oral Roberts University.
There you go.
Yeah, very much so. It's a different system. They've grown up with independent higher education institutions. We've been essentially government institutions from the start. Christian faith has been fundamental from the very beginning over there, whereas we've been more secular in our approach. So you can't exactly try and imitate an American institution, but the ethos, the values, the pedagogy, all the things they've learned, they're transferable. And so relationships with American institutions is critical. At least, Andrew, it gives us the vision of what's possible. And, I think that one of the things that made America such a significant nation has been the impact of Christian faith, has been the impact of Christian values, and higher education is a significant component of that impact. So, plenty to learn from America, plenty of partnership and cooperation to look forward to in the future.
Well, I've got to say, I love that idea. I love that vision, Stephen. I hope it comes to pass quickly because it'd be great for Australia to see a Christian university with really quality education, but also, like you said, with that Christian ethos and that faith as the core value. I think it'll be, as a Christian parent, you'd love to see your kids attend a university like that without compromising their educational standards, though, obviously, by making it a really high-quality institution. Well, Stephen, I really wish you all the best for this Friday, not just you, but all the faith leaders attending, and really hoping and praying that this meeting, it's called the Western Sydney Summit about Faith and Education, attended by the Federal Minister for Education, Jason Clare, and yourself, Stephen. And we're speaking with Stephen Fogarty, who is the president of the Alphacrucis University College. And Stephen, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I sincerely wish you all the best for tomorrow's meeting as well.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andrew, for your interest, and it's been a delight to speak with you. God bless everyone listening.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.